Hello, welcome to episode 31 of Willing Warriors, entitled Growing Old, Gracefully.
Let's do it.
We're trying. So I think most of us can agree we live in a youth culture. Youth is glorified, youth is to be desired, whether you're 20 or 30 or 50 or 70. There's always this, you have to look young and feel young. And I don't know, you have the example of, I know that yoga pants can be very comfy, but grannies in yoga pants, and we have to dye our hair to hide the gray or the silver, the white. But yet beauty of youth, we know from scripture, it's fleeting. And when you try to have that youth in your older age, it just doesn't quite work most of the time. And hopefully you were able to enjoy your youth, but a biblical culture will honor the aged, and hopefully they're wiser, having lived more experiences and having more to hand down. And as the younger generation would be wise to listen. I regret that I listened when my grandma and my parents told me about their childhood, or about, things way before computers or even automobiles to some degree. And I wish that I had taken the time to actually record some of that, because I didn't write it down and I thought, oh, I'll always remember, but one doesn't always remember. So honestly, the biblical culture will honor the older and the wiser. This is quite possibly the express meaning of the fifth commandment. And when they were told to honor, we are told to honor our parents, and how much more so our parents' parents, if we still have them alive. So we hope to talk about growing old gracefully in this video.
So a little bit of a juxtaposition, if I can do it. So this is a culture where everyone wants to be 20 again. Well, I don't want to be 20 again, because I like so many other men, I'm so glad to get out of that age and not have killed myself. But in a biblical culture where you honor the aged, you are trying to act like those who you honor. So just to give an example, so if you go back to George Washington, you go back to English judges, what did they do? They put on gray wigs. They looked older. So I'm not so much after the look, I'm after the mentality. And that's what the biblical culture should do. We should be looking up to those who are older than us, trying to act like them, as opposed to those who are older looking down to those who are younger and trying to act like them. So remember what Psalm 25 says, "Forgive me for the sins of my youth." So with youth, you move from playing with your toys and cars, puberty hits, and in a few short years, you're an adult. And you are inexperienced. You are stupid, right? In so many regards. Just because you haven't lived this. Think about the prodigal son. Was this somebody in his 40s or 50s? No. This was somebody in his maybe late teens or early 20s. And he was inexperienced. And he thought that's where pleasure was. He was chasing the folly and the fads of his day. He thought this was what pleasure was. And he found out after he was eating pea pods, that wasn't where pleasure was. And so we all go through this. We talk about peer pressure that young adults have to face, seeking acceptance by the world's standards. And so you can see the youth culture has to say, if mom and dad had long hair, I want short hair. If mom and dad had short hair, I want long hair. If mom and dad wore clothes this way, I don't want to wear those clothes. So it's a rebellion. It's trying to find something. And so whatever mom and dad did for the youth culture, they want to do something different. So look back, we all have done it, right? You go pull out some of those old pictures, you start thinking about the music that you listened to, the movies you watched, and the clothes you wore, the things that you did. And you know what? At one time it was so important, and you look back and you say, no, it was vanity of vanities. It was foolishness, right? In my day and age, we wore, you have to look, some of the younger ones, you have to look this up, parachute pants. Well, that was a fad that came and went. We also had big poofy hair, and now we look back on those times and we laugh. We laugh. A mullet, whatever you want, right? You turn around and you laugh and you think, and at the time, when you were in the middle of that, we thought we were so cool. Now we look back and we laugh. And you know what? We're still laughing. And what are we laughing at? We're laughing at young men walking around with droopy drawers. And we're saying how foolish it is. And we can laugh because we know if we were of that age, we might be wearing droopy drawers, and how foolish this was, right? Can you imagine these ones with droopy drawers? They got Grandpa, when 20, 30, 40 years from now, they're going to say, have a little grandchild saying, Grandpa, what are you wearing there, right? And everyone's going to laugh. It's going to laugh, right? It was foolishness. So with youth comes foolishness. Let's not chase the foolishness. Let's seek wisdom. So if you go back in history, go back and look how many people have chased the fountain of youth. So how do we do that in our day and age?
Well, there is an absolute multitude of, you can look at almost any magazine and pick out quite a few advertisements that do everything from anti-aging, anti-wrinkles, coloring one's hair to cover and hide the gray. You know, there's so many. There's a whole advertising scheme geared towards our age. Let's just be honest. So sometimes I walk in the bathroom, have this big long mirror, and I'm like, wow, it looks so old. But I think, well, I definitely am getting old, and I should give thanks for that. I do want to say a qualifier that, you know, I have some friends who, before we really started having the hair going gray, you know, some women said, well, I think if my husband wanted me to, you know, to cover up some of the gray, you know, I would. And I don't think it's a sin, but, you know, I just think it takes a lot of time and effort that sometimes possibly, you know, could be spent doing something else. But having said that, you know, I think if your husband really does want you to have, you know, darker hair or whatever, and it pleases him, then please him. You know, I think that's...
And to men, enjoy the gray hair. I'm going to tell you.
Anyway, so, but I can just tell you as an older woman, you know, I used to have a much trimmer body before children and before so much gravity has had time to move things around and the wrinkles. And a lot of that comes with genetics. I'm going to have even a lot more wrinkles than I already do. But, you know, that too is from the Lord, and it shows long life. So remember, I do have something to look forward to, and you do too. When we have our resurrected bodies, we will be given, you know, a new body. And I don't know, it might be that 20-something body. I'm not sure.
Without the foolishness.
Without the foolishness, hopefully. Yeah. And God tells us it will happen in the twinkling of an eye. So,
yeah. So I think the emphasis we're trying to do is instead of trying to, if you're 50, 60, or 70, stop trying to look like you're 20, right? Do your exercise, eat a right diet. I'm good with that, but don't make that your number one goal, because it'll become an idol. So let me just speak to this for a little bit about women, especially. Why? Because women are called the glory or the beauty of mankind. So when my wife and I are together, I jokingly say, I'm the beast and she's the beauty. And if any couple anybody would ever come and say to me, oh, you're so beautiful, I would have to say, get your eyes checked. They know she is the beautiful one. And that's how God's made a woman, the fairer sex, the beautiful one. So we're glad for that. But to my wife's point, that physical beauty is, if you're old enough, you remember the song about Delta Dawn, that faded rose. from days gone by, right? So that beauty starts, that physical beauty starts to fade. So if you're old enough and you maybe have you've gone back to a high school reunion, you've run across somebody you haven't seen, a woman you haven't seen in maybe 20 years, 30 years, and all of a sudden you say, oh, and you have this thought, she really let herself go. The answer is no. She did not let herself go. Instead, what I'm going to tell you is her husband, the man in her life, let her go. You might be puzzled by that. So here's a biblical premise. That which is loved becomes lovelier. So let me speak of a man who's got, there's a man who has a pickup truck. And this is one of, you can imagine, it's not one of these new pickup trucks with all the electric gadgets, but it's one of these old farm trucks. It's served him so well. He's so comfortable with it. It's there, it's reliable, and he jumps in it and he goes, and you know what? He takes it for granted. He parks it outside, and every day he gets in it and he goes and does all of his, it helps him with all of his chores. And now you got a picture of that pickup truck. It's about 57 different shades of some color. It probably hasn't been vacuumed on the inside, and wherever, it's never gotten a coat of wax or whatever. So, but it's reliable, it's faithful, it's been good to him. Now, 57 Chevy, no post, for the men that are listening to this, with the big tall fins, right? This car, this other man, he loves that car. He waxes it, he polishes it, he keeps it running and purring. He doesn't take it for granted. If it's raining or snowing, he doesn't take it out, he keeps it in the garage. That which is loved becomes lovelier. That pickup truck he took for granted, it's there, it's fading, right? That other car that this man loves and cherishes, and it's growing lovelier and lovelier. Men, you treat your wife better than that 57 Chevy and cherish her. She will grow in beauty. I'm not talking her hair. I'm talking that inward beauty that shines forth wherever you can. So that which is loved becomes lovelier. So show her that, and cherish her, even as Christ does this with his bride, the church. He loves his bride, and that bride grows in godliness and wisdom and should grow in beauty. So, talk a little bit more about chasing that 20-year-old body versus chasing that versus what else should we pursue?
So, yeah, the 20-year-old body left a long time ago. And, there are some women who, have just managed to stay in better shape than what I have. And that's good. But I would encourage a woman as she grows older, your body will change. It's just the way God has created us. And what he delights to see as a woman becomes older and hopefully through his word and his spirit has developed a gentle and a quiet spirit, one that is gracious and loving and patient, and grows in the fruits of the Spirit. So, and, I see some of the women that I admire, Edith Schaefer, Corrie ten Boom, and others, and you just see, even though they have a face full of wrinkles and their hair is white or silver and it's pulled back, you can just see that beauty in their face, that they, have a content spirit and seek to honor the Lord in what they have said and what they have done in years past. So can you imagine being in God's throne room and seeing something that is ugly or
Mismatch
disfigured
of
or mismatched? Yeah. I don't think so. Even you have this example when Moses was in God's presence, his face just shone and radiated the Lord.
Yeah,
So
80-year-old man, right?
Right.
So maybe you've had this experience. So let's contrast it. So we're talking about growing old gracefully. So you've probably gone to a house. So as we get older, older people stop trying to put on a facade, and you kind of see who they are. And so you can imagine this one set. So you go into this elderly couple's house, and they've lived together for 50 years, but they know how to push each other's buttons. So you're in that house, and there's these little sniping comments, right? And they know exactly, say that, do that, do that. And so there's demeaning comments from him. There's some harsh, some kind of joke back to her, and you're sitting that she's making. And so they're just doing this back and forth the time you're there. And you're like, you know the feeling. I want to get out of here. I don't want to be here. This is uncomfortable. Now, contrast that to another couple that's grown gracefully. They've grown old gracefully together. So he is cherishing her. So he might be feeble, he might be bent over, he sees that she needs help, he jumps up. He might not move fast, but he's there to lend a hand. He's offering to her comments, a hug, he's telling her, thanking her for the meal, right? Whatever it is, he's being graceful to her, he's cherishing her. She, on the other hand, has learned as well that it's better to serve than to be served. And she is respecting him and honoring him. And he's beaming, she's beaming, and you're in this house. And you love it. You love being there. And you have those memories of that couple, right? They're just so different than the couple that's there pushing the buttons. This is what it means going old gracefully. What God has united, what God has put together, this couple, right? He is working godliness into them. And so how much better it is to grow gracefully together as opposed to this couple that let's go work on our calves today and our abs and try to look like we're 20. No, this couple has accepted their position. Fine, they go take a walk, they go do whatever, but they're growing in godliness. They're not growing in their Pilates or whatever other exercise, right? So let's make that our focus. And remember, that which is loved, men, grows lovelier. So maybe a few more words on growing old
Gracefully.
in your station of life, right?
Yeah. And part of that is accepting, as I said, that, our body, sometimes I really believe the Lord lets our bodies, as we get older, feel aches and pains and sees the physical changes, because it helps us to long more for heavenward, thinking heavenward when we will be, past the old body. So rejoice every time the children, when I have a birthday coming around, or the grandchildren, oh, Nana, you're getting so old. And I said, yes, isn't God good? Because when we celebrate yet another birthday, it's a milestone, and one I believe not to be taken for granted. Life is from the Lord. So I know when we were raising little children, they sometimes, especially if they're tired, grumble or complain or whatever. Say grumbling and complaining is never lovely. And sometimes you have to fight against that, spirit to not grumble, complain, but learn to number your days. The eternal pleasures yet to come. But instead of focusing on, like, when I get up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I think I gained 5 years last night or something. But, just to give thanks to the Lord and focus on the inward and what he continues to do. And I think, as you mentioned, not to be served, but to be able to still serve. So
fast forward a little bit, and we've talked about it once, we mentioned it just once before. Instead of you trying to resurrect that old body to make it into something new, that's God's job. He's going to do it. We're going to die, right? We're going into the grave. Our spirit will go heavenward, and then he will come back to judge the living and the dead. And we will rise, and we will be given a new body. He will make that new body perfect. It won't suffer pain. It won't die. It won't decay. Let him do that. You submit to him and focus on submitting to him, and let him, you are his workmanship, and he is working on that inner man, that inner woman. Make that your focus. And know this. What's it talk about? Ecclesiastes, right? There is a time for everything. The foolishness of youth is past. Don't make that your prized possession. We were fools, right? Take that wisdom that God has given you through the ages, pass it on to those that are young. Help those that are 20 to inform them, you will not be 20 forever. You cannot fight this and win. So learn to number your days. You too are going to get old. You too, unless the Lord comes back, you are going to die. So learn to number your days. Follow him. Enjoy every day as a gift from him. So this is what we think it means to grow old gracefully instead of trying to hold on. I think Jack Benny, if anybody's old enough to remember Jack Benny for 20, 30 years, said he was, how old are you, Jack? He said, I'm 39, I'm 39, I'm 39. Well, he was holding on to 39, but sooner or later he let go, and then he really looked old. So enjoy where God has placed you. The time of life. Enjoy whether you're young, middle-aged, or old age. Enjoy every minute of it, and stop looking back to saying, this is going to be better, and that's going to be better, that's going to be better. Enjoy where God has placed you today. Rejoice. So let's grow old gracefully. Let's put on wisdom. Let's put on godliness, and let's share it with those that are younger. Let's honor the gray-headed. Let's rise in their presence. Again, thank you for joining us to Willing Warrior, to Growing Old Gracefully. We welcome your comments. If you like this content, share, subscribe. Until next time, may God be glorified.